Jai-grative, Jai Masters. Life, growth, spirituality, they're all the same thing. You basically get to a point where you realize you were born and you're going to die. In between, there's this thing called time. It's yours. It doesn't belong to anybody else. You have to ask yourself, what do you want to do with that time? You should ask yourself that regularly. I always suggest that every morning and every evening, you put aside at least 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You just put aside at least 15 minutes. And what you do with that time is your business. You want to call it meditation, you want to call it contemplation, you want to call it getting your head straight, getting centered, doesn't matter. You need that time. And one of the things you do with that time, every morning, every evening, is remember that you're a day closer to leaving. What is it you decided you wanted to do with your time here? Because that's your job, that's your career. If you get lost in anything smaller than that, you miss the picture. So this thing about the time between your birth and your death being yours, and it's something very, very precious, and no one gets to tell you what to do with it. It's your business. But if you don't pay attention, you won't do anything with it. You won't even realize you're not doing anything with it. It will just go by. Your days will fly by. So let's talk about that. If you don't put the time aside, and you don't become what we call a conscious being. What is a conscious being? Everybody's conscious. A conscious being is somebody who knows they're conscious. They're paying attention. They're there. They're present. They're not missing things. And they're making decisions based upon the fact that they've decided where they want to go. I'm not talking about your career or your marriage. That's all tiny little things. It's all going to go away when you die. So it can't be so important. What's important is, what are you going to do with your time here? What do you want to do? And if you don't put aside these bookends where you're remembering to remember, what is going to happen is as follows. There is a default that if you don't do anything about it, this is what's going to happen. It's very low level. It's like animal instinct type stuff, just a little bit above it. It's the lowest part of your being. You're going to have an experience. All the time you're having experiences. Things are happening. You're seeing things. You're hearing things. You're feeling things. And some experiences are not going to be pleasant, and some experiences are going to be pleasant. That's just how it is. So they're going to come in, and they're going to hit you different ways, ever since you were young. And these experiences, especially the ones that don't feel good and the ones that feel really good, are going to leave very powerful impressions inside of you. So if something happens to you, and it was in a car, and there was an accident when you were young, if you're not careful for the rest of your life, you will not be comfortable in a car. If your parents died in a plane accident, I am telling you, you will have trouble when you're riding a plane. These impressions get left in there, don't they? That's what's going to determine your life if you don't do anything about it. These impressions that got randomly left because of the experiences that you had are going to get stimulated by the moments that are unfolding in front of you. And if they remind you of something that was uncomfortable, you're not going to like what's happening in front of you, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with what happened to you 20 years ago. So you're letting your life be run by nothing, by ghosts, by meaningless stuff. If you're not careful, that's what's going to happen. And you're going to get filled with these impressions. You pick them up as you go along the way. And if they were pleasant, you're going to run after the thing that reminds you of them. Even though I guarantee you the thing that reminds you of them has nothing to do with the experience you had 5 years ago or 7 years ago or 10 minutes ago. Nothing. The universe is changing every moment right before your eyes, and you're letting these past impressions store inside of you, and then you are making decisions, reacting, going toward things, going away from things, liking things, not liking things, hopes, opinions, preferences, beliefs. All of that stuff is just the leftover impressions of what happened to you. In psychology, Skinner, a behavioral psychologist, said Man is the sum of his learned experiences. That is not true. You are you in there. But your mind and your heart, your personal, your human heart, are the sum of your learned experiences. Your heart will open in the presence of someone or something that made it open before. And it will close in anything that reminds you of what closed it before. Have you noticed? And then if you're not paying attention and doing something about it, you will follow that. You will say, oh, but I like him. You don't know why. I do. Past impressions. Just some combination of the eyeglasses and the way the hair is and, reminded you of the uncle that you liked. I don't know. It's some composite thing hit you a certain way. And the next thing you know, you're attracted and drawn toward that. And then there's no purpose in your life. You're just running after and being affected by the past experiences, the past impressions that got left inside of you. It's very important. I don't want to get lost. I usually talk a lot about that because it's important. But I just want to make sure we're communicating and then move on. That stuff that happened to you before is meaningless. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening right now. If I pick you up and you've never been to a certain country, a certain city, and I take you out of here, just plop you down into a street in that city, I'm telling you what is going on in that city, even though you don't speak the language, you don't know the people, and you've never been there, you're going to immediately start to like and dislike things. You can immediately start to say, well, this is right, that's wrong, I can't believe you do things like that. You're bringing with you into an environment you've never been in, and it has nothing to do with you, the impressions that got left because of where you grew up in, Wisconsin or Illinois or wherever it was, right? These things that have nothing to do, nothing, zero. They have nothing to do with where you are. And yet they seem like they do because they hit your stuff. And so all of a sudden, like and dislike and attraction and repulsion and all kinds of judgments and everything comes up inside of you, and you start interacting with the moment in front of you based on what came up. Have you noticed that? Do you know why it's hard to see? Because it's so prevalent we don't see it. We live lost in this ocean of our past impressions that keep coming up. You brought with you to the country you've never been in before you. Didn't you? And then somehow everything's supposed to be like that. But it's not. Well, then it's wrong. They do things wrong. Boy, they do things weird. They serve the dessert before the dinner. What kind of thing is that? Okay, and like I said, unless you do something about it, that is the default. You will do that with your relationships. Let's just do it once more. Please pay attention because you'll have so much trouble with relationships. This is why. As you grow up, you have different experiences, and you even watch movies that leave impressions on you, and you see other people that leave impressions on you, plus you have other relationships since you're 8, 10, 12, 14 years old, and they leave impressions on you. So what you end up doing is formulating within you the perfect person. How they would act, how they would be, what kind of job they have, whether they're an outdoor person or an indoor person, just every single aspect based upon impressions that have been left on you, what turned you on and what turned you off. No wonder you have so much trouble with relationships. Because you're supposed to be having a relationship with another person, but you're not. You're having a relationship with you, with the person you made up. And if that person matches what you made up, you think they're your soulmate. Oh my God, they're so perfect. Until they do one thing that you would never have thought they would do. Well, why would you? You never had that impression. They come from a totally different place than you do. There's no way. There is no one out there, no one ever, who matches what you made up. What you made up is just a collage of all these different experiences you had. Nobody else had those experiences. So if somebody appears to match, you better be careful. Okay? I mean, there are nice relationships to have, but that's not one of them. Because you're just going to eventually say, God, I thought she was just right, and then I can't believe what she did. I would have never thought she would have done that. Guess whose problem that is? Yours. You have no right to make somebody up in your head and then decide you met them and project onto that person how they're supposed to be dressing and behaving and acting and talking and treating you and everything. So this is why we have so much trouble with relationships. While we're on it, a true relationship is You have found within yourself, where we're going to go by the end of this talk, you found within yourself peace and well-being and beauty and love, because it's in there. You don't need anybody else. And you like sharing it. If they want to share, fine. If they don't, fine. It's so beautiful, right? You're whole and complete within yourself. You're not needing anything from another person. You're just sharing the beauty that you found inside yourself. Should you be fortunate enough to find another person that's doing the same thing, or at least working on it, that's a very nice relationship. That's a spiritual relationship. The other is just a need thing where you're trying to get somebody else to be the way you think you need them to be for you to be okay. All right. So I've given a couple of examples of what the default is going to look like if you don't do something about it. And I swear, you got, 7 billion of you running around the planet Earth doing it by default. It's a rare exception that somebody wakes up and does something about this. Otherwise, they just have these different impressions and they behave accordingly and expect everyone else to be that way and get very upset when it's not and try to manipulate and control everybody to be the way they think they need to be, the way that feels good for them based on their past experiences. Do you understand that your past experiences mean nothing? I mean, I got to talk strong because it's so different than what people are used to. Your past experiences mean nothing, nothing, nothing. You could have been turning your head the other way when something happened. You'd have a different experience. It's a totally random thing that you just happen to pick up the moment what was in front of you. At any given moment, how much didn't you pick up? How much is going on everywhere else that you didn't see? Like everything. You picked up 0.00000, etc., 1% of what's going on. And then you make a big deal of it, as if somehow the world's supposed to be based on the impressions you had. It's not. There's no way it's supposed to do that. And so a wise person catches on that I don't get to do this. I don't get to collect these past experiences and then have them tell me what the moment in front of me is supposed to be like and get upset if it's not and start to manipulate and control everything around me to be the way I want it to be and fight with everybody. That's what creates all the turmoil. That's what everybody's doing. And that's the default of what will happen if you don't do something about it. All right. So that's danger zone. All right. And maybe you know something about it. Most people do because we live our lives that way. And then what's going to happen is more and more you will wake up in the morning and you'll be scared. Scared about what's going to happen today. Scared that something's going to go wrong. Scared that something you don't want's going to happen. Scared that something you want's not going to happen. Scared that somebody won't like you. You're going to find that if you have a conversation with somebody and you walk away, that the conversation doesn't stop when you walk away. That it keeps going on in your head. You start wondering why you said what you said, and maybe you should have said something else, and what does the person think of you? And, that is inevitable what is going to go on if you're living that type of life. A life that says, I've made up this collage of how it's supposed to be, and now I'm judging everything based on that, and it becomes a struggle. It becomes difficult. That's why people have ulcers, why there's so much tension. That's why life seems like a struggle. Life is not a struggle. Life is literally get on a river going downstream and enjoy the scenery. I want to create this contrast so you wake up. Life literally at all times, get in a raft, on a river, flowing downstream, and enjoy the scenery every single moment. That's what life is. It's been going on for 13.8 billion years, everywhere throughout the entire universe, and part of it's flowing in front of you. Very little, all right, but there's a part of it. Are you having a good time? Are you enjoying what's taking place? Do you wake up in the morning excited and enthused to wonder what's going to happen? Isn't this going to be neat? I wonder what will happen today. What will I get to see? It's like going to camp. It's just so exciting. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's just exciting to see it. What are you going to see today? You're going to see what's going on in front of you. What are you going to miss? Everything else. Better get used to that. People run around, I want to experience everything. I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. Oh, that's crazy. You're going to miss everything. You're going to miss every single thing except the laser point of what's in front of you. You're missing everything, every other planet, every other galaxy, every other thing on the planet Earth. Get with the program. So, what is the alternative? The alternative first is to realize you need to wake up. Not because somebody told you to. Never has anything to do with anybody telling you. You have to wake up within yourself and realize life is supposed to be beautiful. Life is a beautiful experience. It's not a struggle. Because you're just willing to have the experience of your life, whatever it is. And if you're willing to have it, it has a beauty to it. It's teaching you things. It's challenging. It's just a beautiful experience. If you're not willing to have it, if you've taken the opinion that life is supposed to be what I made up this model of how things should be. That's how it's supposed to be. You're in big trouble. You just went to war with reality. So again, let's move on. What can you do about it? You can put aside some time every single morning and every single evening. Doesn't have to be a lot. Doesn't take much time. And you sit yourself down and you notice that your mind, if left to its own, is not doing any favors. That your mind is weaving this thing. It's almost as if, and I say almost as if in quotes because it is this way, that the things that happened before didn't get digested by you. They didn't finish. They got stuck in there. And because they're stuck in there, they're trying to get out. It's not comfortable. So they try to leak out through your mind, and they try to leak out through your heart. These energies try to release. And so your mind is always talking about something. Has anybody noticed that? It's very funny. It's always talking about something. You're not telling it to. You don't even decide what it talks about. It just talks. It just starts talking about all kinds of things. And it talks about the thing it talked about. And next thing you know, you're not even living your life. You're living your mind. You're paying attention to this noise that's coming up from your mind. Now get it straight. I have nothing against the mind. I love the human mind. It's the most brilliant thing in the world. I like to study Einstein. I like all this stuff. It's beautiful. It's the personal mind that I'm talking about. What does that mean, the personal mind? I have personally picked up a whole boatload worth of impressions from my past. They're mine. They're not yours. Mine are totally different. Yours are totally different. From everybody. From your husbands, from your wives, everything. They're totally different. They're the ones you picked up. They didn't sit well. It was like a bad dinner. So now I have indigestion. And so the mind is attempting to release those energies. So if I see a tree, it reminds me of the tree I fell off of when I was 6. And then it reminds me of going to the hospital. Next thing I know, I'm depressed. Because I saw a tree. That's what's going on. This stuff is trying to release. And so everything is reminding you. Or I see something that reminds me of a really good time I had when I was young. And I start feeling, wow, why can't I have more times like that? Because I got this family around me. And next thing you know, you're having a midlife crisis. All right? The mind is trying to release the stuff that didn't get processed inside. It's very, very simple. In yoga, we call those impressions samskaras. That's the Sanskrit name for those impressions. They're samskaras. And they're stuck inside, and they leak out through the mind. The mind is trying to release the energy that didn't get finished. And it's not just the mind, the heart does it too. You know that. All of a sudden your heart starts to hurt. You were feeling fine, but a car drove by and it reminded you when your boyfriend broke up when you were 12. And all of a sudden you have this pain coming out of your heart. Anybody know anything about that? Do you really want to live like that? Because that's what's going to happen, like I said. So basically you start to realize that that's the personal mind. Not the intellectual mind, not the analytical mind. The personal mind. The one that's always talking, always judging, always wanting, needing, complaining. It's just weaving a story about how it's supposed to be according to you. That's the personal mind. Anybody got one? All right. What you do is you wake up and realize it is not your friend. It's not your enemy, but it's not your friend. It's not going to take you anywhere you want to go. All it's going to do is say, there's all these things that bothered me before. I don't want them to happen again. Figure out how to manipulate everyone around you so that they don't happen again. What kind of life is that for you or for anybody else? And plus, you will never succeed. Or, I had something happen before. I wish this would happen or that would happen, and start weaving all this made-up stuff and then getting upset because it's not happening. So instead, you spend this 15 minutes in the morning and evening, and you notice that your mind is doing this. That's the first step. You notice that no matter how much I talk about it, I could not exaggerate how big the problem is. You can't live your life because you're caught in your mind. The mind is busy making up an alternate life and judging the one that's actually happening. And while you're doing that, what kind of life is that? It's not comfortable at all. It's scary. So you start watching that. And that's the first step is that. is you put aside the time. The second step is you be willing to watch instead of get involved. And that's not easy. I'd like you to learn that. The minute it starts talking, you're gone. It's cute. You're not there anymore. I thought you were going to meditate. I thought you were going to sit there. Well, I was, and then I started thinking about and then 15 minutes went by. That's okay. Even if that's what happens, and you say to me, I tried, but it doesn't work. I said, what happened? My mind just started talking. The next thing I know, it wasn't there, and I tried to come back, and then I got lost again, then I came back, then I got lost again. I'm going to sit there and say, well, that's wonderful. What do you mean it's not working? That's wonderful. You actually realized that you are not your mind. You wanted to be quiet, but it kept talking, and you also got sucked into it. And then you came back. In other words, you actually spent time being you. Yes, you got lost in the mind, but you were aware that you got lost in the mind. So believe it or not, that is actually a decent meditation. There's nothing wrong with that. During the day, you're not noticing that your mind won't shut up, that it's driving you crazy, that it's causing all kinds of trouble. You're busy being it. You're just doing whatever it says. Whatever it says. If it says, I like it, you run after it. I don't like it, you run away from it. But at least during those 15 minutes, your idea was to sit there. Really, this is how I teach it. Because I don't teach meditation. It's the closest I'm going to come. All right? You sit there and try and not get involved in what your mind is saying. Don't try to stop your mind. It's not a matter of fighting with your mind. Never fight with your mind. It doesn't work out for anybody, you or your mind or anybody else. The mind has the right to try to release the energies that are stuck inside of you. Just like your body creates white blood cells, T cells, to try and get rid of bacteria and so on. That's its job. It's trying to do something for you. Your mind is trying to release these disturbed energies that you have stored inside of you. Don't get mad at it. You don't want to follow that. It's not going to help you. You have to learn to be comfortable until you're finished. Eventually you'll be finished. The mind won't do that. But you can sit there and notice, this is my mind cleansing. This is my mind trying to tell me what needs to happen for me to be okay. I'm not interested. It's not going to make me okay. My mind will tell me it better not rain tomorrow. I'm having a party outside. Come on. Why does it always rain on the days I don't want it to? Of what use is it for your mind to talk to you like that? All it does is make you nervous. All it does is make you anxious. It is not going to affect the weather, but yet it does that, doesn't it? And so you start watching. You start noticing that the environment that your mind is creating for you is not healthy. It is not an environment in which love can sprout. It is not an environment in which freedom can be experienced. It is a binding, troublesome thing. And then it makes you go out and try to find things outside that appease it and make it feel better. If it's worried about something, is scared of something, it tries to make you do things that will make it feel better. You should never do that. I would never, ever listen to what my mind tells me to do. Because I know my mind doesn't know a single thing. It only knows the tiny little experiences that it's stored from the past, and now it's making up something, trying to make the current moment be like that. I know it's not going to be like that. Why would I give in to a mind talking like that? And so you have to practice not stopping your mind, not listening to your mind. You have to learn to not listen to yourself. Well, who will I listen to if I don't listen to myself? That's such a logical, beautiful question. Wait till you hear the answer. The point is, until you are capable of not listening to the noise of your mind, you can't understand the answer. Because people cling to their mind like they cling to a life raft, as if somehow I'm going to drown if I don't listen to all this junk that my mind is saying about what it wants to happen, what it doesn't want to happen, what it likes, what it doesn't like, everything that's been bad in the past and how unfair it was that happened. It just talks and talks about this undigested stuff. In this 15 minutes you put aside morning and evening, what we generally recommend is very simple, and this is a basic meditation technique, is watch your breath go in and out. Well, what good is that? It's better to watch your breath go in and out than it is to watch your mind. Well, you say, I can't do it. I try to watch my breath go in and out, and I end up caught in my mind. That's okay. I tell everybody, you couldn't do calculus when you took the class. That's why you took the class. You couldn't play the piano when you first started. It's something you need to learn. You learn how to, instead of listening to your crazy mind, you do something else. It could be anything, but the easiest is to watch your breath because it's always there. And you just watch it go in and out. Just even a short period of time is sufficient to change your life. If you practice understanding that what your mind is telling you to do and telling you not to do, and talking about the fears and the anxieties and what shouldn't happen, all this junk that has no meaning at all, and instead pay attention to something else, you are learning to free yourself. You're learning to liberate yourself. So what will happen? For one thing, you won't be all uptight, because the mind tends to get you uptight. Why would I not be uptight if my mind says, oh my God, what if the car doesn't start tomorrow? Oh, it's so important. You got to go to that job interview. I feel so bad. I wouldn't find out. Why are you doing that to yourself? You'll be a neurotic mess by the time you go to get the interview. You are much better off not doing that. And you're going to find out that the vast majority of the time, you are better off not listening to your mind. You can listen to your mind if it tells you somebody's name. Talk about where you're going to go on your vacation or something like that. It can plan. It can do things. It's a computer. But it can't sit there and make up a life and say, this is the only way I'm going to be okay if this happens. Or get upset because it doesn't even know what life to make up. They tell you, what do you want to do with your life? You get all upset because you don't know. There's nothing to know. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to live your life. You're supposed to be here present with the life, see what it's bringing to you, like I said, floating down the river, see what it's bringing to you, and see what you're supposed to do with what it's bringing to you. Just be here now. You're in the current moment. You will always be in the current moment. It's the only thing that's in front of you. I don't care what you made up. It's not going to be what's in front of you. So the only thing that happens with your mind is it makes you feel good or bad about what's happening. That's what it's deciding. I like it or I don't like it. It's not doing any good. And so you learn, you practice with this time we're talking about. It's called working on yourself. The first thing you have to practice, are you capable of not listening to your mind? And I hope I'm freeing you to understand it is not the purpose to shut the mind up. That's why people don't do this. Say, I can't make my mind stop. No one can make their mind stop. It is not what you're trying to do. There's a reason the mind is talking. You don't want to fight with that. Eventually you'll get rid of that reason and it will be quiet. You will have a peaceful mind. But for now, you just look at it and realize, I don't want to listen to all this junk. It's not helping me. Okay, then learn not to. It's called letting go. Learn to let it go. If the mind talks, and it's just, I told you this, I got these things that I've learned. Like if the mind is talking about your past, how many of you have events that happened in your past that you don't like? That is the worst thing in the world you could ever listen to in your mind. Your past is not going to change. So if you have something coming up in your mind talking about what you don't like about the past, you're wasting your life. No good will ever come of that. So you learn to let go. If the mind talks about what happened when your parents got divorced when you were young, or your first husband, or so on, you just give it a little kiss on the head, say, all right, you do that, I'm going to watch my breath. And I'm telling you, you will start to feel better. You will start to enjoy your life more. If you're sitting there eating your meal, and you pay attention to your eating, instead of having the mind talk about, it's not the same as what I expected it was going to be, all right, last time I was here, there was more, they gave a bigger serving, and you know, I don't know. I don't even like to mimic it. It's scary. You are better off not listening to the garbage that your mind talks in there. Like I said, you're not going to stop the mind right now, but you can learn to not listen to it. It's not hard not to listen to it. Just put your attention somewhere else. So the first thing that will happen is you will find out you're happier. You're happier. You enjoy more lunches. You're happier with other people because you're not expecting things of them. But that's nothing. The next thing is going to happen. Little by little, you're going to realize the fact that I cannot listen to my mind means I am not my mind. And now we're getting somewhere. I'm not my mind? Oh, I forgot to tell you, you're not your body. I'm not my body. Can you look at it? Can you look at your body? I want to ask you, can you look at your body? Who's looking? When you were 12 years old, did you look in the mirror and see a 12-year-old? Is it the same you who looks in the mirror now and sees a 20-year-old? When you go to sleep at night, do you dream? How do you know? Because it's the same you watching the dream as the you who's here watching this stuff, isn't it? There is a you in there. There's a continuity of consciousness. It has been there the entire time. It has just seen different scenery outside. It has seen a different mind. You know, when you were 12, your mind said different things than it says now. And so you're watching a different mind. Your heart is emoting different emotions based on different situations. And the world, of course, is different all the time. You're not different. That's what happens when you start being willing to watch the mind instead of be it. It's like you watch TV. You're not the TV. You're the one who's watching the TV. Watching your mind is exactly like watching a TV. It's just something that's talking. It's like a talking head. And it's just in there talking. And you learn to relax. That's the next thing you do. First, you follow your breath instead of listening to your mind. And when you get kind of good at that, you just relax. The mind talks, you relax. The mind starts giving you a hard time about stuff, you relax. If your mind is giving you a hard time about something that happened 10 years ago, will you look me in the eye and tell me that makes sense? Does it make sense? It doesn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form. It's going to destroy your life. You need to learn to relax in the face of what your mind is saying. So if you're following your breath, and I'm talking about every situation, that's what you need to do. You're following your breath, your mind is talking, just relax, let go. And then start to lean away from what your mind is saying. And what you're going to find out is now we know, I already told you don't get as uptight as you used to. And now you realize, I'm me. That's what I want. I don't want to give it a name, the Atman, the self. You know who you are? You. If I say, hi, are you in there? You say, yes, don't you? That's who you are. The indwelling being. The essence of your being, you. And you'll notice that you are the one who's watching your mind. And you have gotten lost in the mind, just like you get lost in a movie or lost in TV. If you will spend this time and practice, you will start to not get lost in the mind. But I have to warn you that you'll go through a period where you will not like that you had this discussion, because your mind is way worse than anything. And your mind's no different than anybody else's. It's not personal. Don't take it personal. I have to mention that, by the way. When you start watching your mind instead of being it, don't get upset because how bad it is. Don't get down on yourself. Just realize, oh, wow, thank God I'm not listening to this anymore. You will literally get to that point where you say, thank God I used to listen to that. I used to do what it told me. If somebody did something and my mind said, why'd they do that? And then it said, because they don't like you. They've been lying to you the entire time. That's something your mind made up. That's not why they did it. You don't know why they did it. That's why you asked yourself, why did they do it? If you knew why they did it, you wouldn't have said, why did they do it? Which one of you have ever had your mind do the following? I know why he did that. Because probably was because, your mind ever done that? That means it doesn't know. It's not going to make it up and then know. It doesn't know. But it doesn't like not knowing, does it? And so it makes it up. And the next thing you know, it makes up why people do things and why things happen. And then it decides what to do about it because that's why they did it. That is what you're going to see going on in there. It's going to scare you to death. And at some point, you will wake up enough where you realize, oh my God, I'm not free yet, but I ain't listening to it. And there's no way I am ever again doing what it says to do. All right? Well, now what? Now the question becomes, how do I live my life? If I'm not listening to my own preferences, my own views, my own opinions, my own junk that I made up inside, right? You start to realize that if you can get quiet inside and just relax behind the mind, that you're actually in there and that you can look past the mind at life and it'd be like a totally different experience. All of a sudden you are seeing life instead of seeing your mind's reaction to life. I want to go very slow here. Do you understand the difference? One of the tasks I've been giving you lately is when somebody's talking to you, check out whether you are listening to that person or listening to what your mind says about what they're saying. Your mind is just agreeing, disagreeing, wondering what you're going to do when they finally stop. What are you going to say? I don't know. It's just, it's not listening to them. To say it, right? In the same way as you are not listening to somebody else, you are not paying attention to what's going on in front of you. You are paying attention to the impact that what's going on in front of you has on your personal mind. The mind starts talking about it. When you quiet that down, not quieting the mind, but listen, if somebody's talking to you and you don't like what they're saying, you're not interested, you just don't listen to them. You don't have to shut them up. You just don't listen. That's how you become about your mind. See, it's not a struggle. It's a releasing. It's a relaxing. You cease to be interested. I'm not going to do what you say anyways. So if you want to talk, that's your business. I'm going to pay attention to what life is doing instead of paying attention to whether I like what life is doing, whether I don't like what life is doing, or how I can make life be the way I want. That's the core of it. And so now you do these practices, you're going to find out they stretch beyond the 15 minutes. You're going to find out if you practice watching the mind or watching the breath and not getting lost in the mind, that all of a sudden you're in life. And somebody's driving in front of you slower than you like. And your mind says, this stuff, it's not doing any good. The person's not hearing you. When you said, how can you drive like that? What's the matter with you? It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. You're going 25. Look at you now, you're going 15. They're not hearing you. Your mind is making you sick. And so you learn to let go. You just let go, even during everyday moments of your life. So now it's more peaceful because you're not listening to the junk. Now you're more present. You know who you are. I am the one who's not listening to this, who's relaxing behind it. And you're able to handle the different things my heart and my mind are doing. And all of a sudden, you will realize that instead of listening to your mind, you listen to life. Life knows more. That's what Lao Tzu tried to teach you in the Tao. Life, the unfolding of life in front of you, knows more about what's going to happen next and what's happening now than what your mind makes up. You don't need to be doing that. If you are present with what's happening, you are gathering more information than the junk that your mind is talking about. At least the information you're gathering is about now. It's about what's actually happening. Your mind is talking about what already happened to you. It's talking about your past. It's not really bringing good information into the current moment. And that's why it's making up stuff. And I've already been through that. I'm going to do it again. It's really way worse than anything I could ever begin to tell you once you see it. You're bringing these tiny little incidents that happened to you in your past into the current moment and trying to say the current moment's about those. No, it's not. It's about reality. It's about itself. It's not true that it's raining because it's your birthday. And it doesn't always rain on your birthday. It's simply not true. And it's not true that that person did a given thing because they don't like you or something. You know, you'll find out over time whether they like you or not. You willing to? The answer, of course, is no. No, I want to know now so I don't get hurt, so I have control over the situation. You don't have control over the situation, and if you try to have control over the situation, you will miss the entire situation. You will be busy with your control issues instead of dealing with reality. So this whole thing about shifting your consciousness into the current moment and actually being willing to have a relationship with reality, it will then talk to you. I don't mean talk to you psychically. It's not about that. It's about if there are clouds in front of you in the distance, they tell you more about whether it's going to be raining in a few hours than whether you want it to be raining or not. And the same thing with a human being. If there's somebody in front of you and they're talking to you, listen to them. You will know more about what they're saying if you listen to them and try to feel what they're saying, let it in, than you will trying to protect yourself from what you're afraid they might be saying or get all excited because it sounds like they're going to say what you want. Basically, we do that. We see what we want to see, or more often we see what we don't want to see. We're afraid something's going to happen, so we see it. It's so funny. So net result is, what would happen instead if you learned to let go of that and paid attention to what was actually there? Just let it be there and let it touch you and let it come in, and then let the next moment be there. Let it touch you, let it come in. All of a sudden, there's no problem. There's just you experiencing the unfolding of life. And at first, it's uncomfortable because you feel exposed. And you realize that's why you did all this mind stuff. That's why you made up an alternate reality of how it needs to be for you to be okay, is because you're scared. Right? Well, eventually you will learn not to be scared. You will learn that you live in a world, and this is my favorite part of a talk like this, you live in a world that 13.8 billion years ago, your scientists tell you was nothing but massive, thick hydrogen gases. And it made itself into the world you're living in. It made itself into DNA molecules that can make babies out of cells. It manifests everything. It did it all by itself, didn't it? Einstein didn't do it. Nobody did it. You live in a world that the nature of it is so brilliant, so awesome. How could you not be excited to see what it's going to do next? The fact that there is weather, the fact that there is rain, the fact that the sun evaporates water out of the ocean and it comes into these carrier systems called clouds, and they float over the land, and then they drop this beautiful water, and the forests water themselves. You live in an awesome place. It's the most unbelievable, it's literally beyond comprehension. That's the world you live in. That's what's going on out there throughout all the galaxies. Right? How can you be afraid of that? It's awesome. It's unbelievable. You get to experience the next moment that it's making. No one has yet experienced the moment you're experiencing right now, and no one ever will. This is how a wise person looks at the universe. It is a gift. It is exciting. It is unbelievable. There is no need to make up an alternate reality and fight with it. And eventually you start realizing it's beautiful. It's awesome. Even the worst parts of it are better than nothing. And all of a sudden you feel all this joy and all this love and all this excitement, all this enthusiasm for absolutely no reason. Not because things are going the way you want. It's because you're not blocking yourself from the awesomeness that's unfolding in front of you. That's why we talk about come into the present moment, be here now. Let go of this neurosis that you've done with your mind. And you'll start feeling love all the time, all the time. You'll start feeling enthusiasm all the time. You'll start realizing, back to where I started, you have this time between your birth and your death. What do you want to do with it? Enjoy it. You wake up in the morning and you giggle. You're going to get the present of whatever happens today. I don't care what it is. It's kind of neat. The universe is going to make something unfold in front of me, and I'm going to experience it. And it's kind of a fun game that you're dancing with. And then you're enthused. You're enthused. So I get to ride in a car. I get to go to work. I get to do something. It doesn't matter. It's just fun. It's just exciting. You're on a tiny little planet, spin in the middle of nowhere, getting to have all these experiences. And so all the complaints go away. All the judgments go away. All the fears go away. The need for control goes away. It's just a beautiful experience. Well, what about getting old? You enjoy getting old. What's wrong with getting old? So you just come to peace with all of this. There's no more reason for all these thoughts. There's no fear. There's no anxiety. When we're talking about getting old, people are weird about getting old. When you get old, you start to get varicose veins and you get wrinkles in your face and all these things happen. Isn't that neat? It's beautiful. It's always been beautiful. Every moment is different. Why would I want one moment over another? It is completely exciting and enjoyable every moment the minute you let it be. But your mind won't let it be. So that's why you take this time and you put it aside. And you practice, not fighting. It's not a struggle. You just practice, just like you practice the piano, just like you practice any instrument or anything. You practice not listening to the junk that your mind has to say. And at first you won't be good at it. It's okay. You're not good at anything when you first start. But I'm telling you, if you do a little bit every day, a little bit, you're going to get good at it. And you're going to be so glad you did that. After 5, 10, 15, 20 years go by, and all of a sudden you have the ability to not listen to your mind. When something happens and it starts getting all scared, you just look at it, poor little thing. It's okay. Pat it on the head because you're not bothered. You're not bothered watching a mind that is bothered. You're not bothered. I want to see you because I want to look in your eyes when you get to the point that not a single thing can come out of your heart that you're not comfortable with. It doesn't mean a sense of loss, a sense of fear, a sense of pain because a relationship broke up or something. I'm not saying your heart doesn't do that. That's very natural. That's the human heart. Are you comfortable with every single thing your heart can do? Are you comfortable in there with the fact that you have a mind and you have a heart and there's a world unfolding? Eventually you will be. And at that state, I know you would think, I have 2 minutes left, that's all it takes. And they would think, well, that's a high state. That you're comfortable inside, regardless of what the mind is doing. It's a human mind. It's got its issues. And the human heart definitely is very interesting. But you're comfortable. You're the indwelling being who's noticing these things. Because you're not getting sucked into them, that is what it means to transcend. It's not something you do. It's something you realize you are. You are transcendent to your mind and your heart and to the world. They can unfold and you remain calm. You remain steady. You remain centered. Because you're not getting pulled into them, you will start noticing that where you exist now is very beautiful. That there's love, tremendous love, and there's joy, and there's excitement and enthusiasm, and it starts to pull you into it. And you start being pulled up instead of down. Your mind pulls you down into it, your heart pulls you down into it, and the world for sure pulls you down into it. When you stop getting sucked into all that, because you learn to be comfortable, then all of a sudden you start getting pulled up, and it is real. Literally, the energy that used to flow down starts flowing up. And you get high, higher than any drug, higher than any intimate experience, higher than anything you've ever experienced. Just this, Yogananda said, there's a river of joy that flows inside of you. Find it, go there, get in, and drown. That's liberation. Yoga means union, the merger of your being with this tremendous flow of energy that starts to pull you up into it. And you can get so high, there's nothing to even talk about. That's why we have pictures of masters hanging on the walls. I told somebody, if you don't know India, the tradition, that some of these guys' names are very similar. Like that's Yogananda, that's Nityananda. A lot of them have names that have this word Ananda in them. So Yogananda means one who has come to know the bliss of yoga. Muktananda means one who has come to know the bliss of liberation, of mukta, of liberation. Nityananda is one who has come to know the bliss of complete merger with the infinite, has gone beyond form. That's what Nitya means. So all these things with Ananda on them is the teachings that what is inside of you, the highest experience you ever had is because something was going on that your mind opened. And when your mind opened, you felt yourself. That's all you're feeling. That you misunderstand. You think the thing outside of you is making you feel high. It's not. It is opening your mind, which finally shuts up for a minute, or opening your heart, so that you can experience what's always going on inside of you, which is tremendous joy, beauty, and enthusiasm. So that starts to become your state. And then you have to learn, people have to learn how to handle the liquor. You have to learn how to handle your Ananda. Drive the car while you're blissing out. They don't make it illegal yet. Be in a relationship where you feel so much love and the other person wants to have a talk with you because they're having some issues, and you think that's so adorable, and you just feel all this love because you're fine no matter what happens. That's where I want you to be. Life is a beautiful thing. You're a free being. You're the most beautiful thing that ever existed, but not if you are lost in that neurotic mind that's all caught up in its past experiences and so on. All right. So I did something I don't usually do. I talked about that 15 minutes in the beginning and the end. Do you see the power of that? All this high stuff I talked about, what you're doing with those 15 minutes is saying, that sounds pretty nice. Maybe I should invest a little bit of my time each day in working on that. And you will find that that's all it takes. I swear to you, all it takes is 15 minutes, morning and evening. And over time, you will learn to free yourself and have a very high experience. Very good. Work on these things. Jagrata.